Well, hello everybody. How are you? So good to see you this evening. Thanks for joining us for kind of a joint session of demystifying government contracting and the GI factor. Normally, we have demystifying government contracting on this day, and we're going to have a special guest, as well as we are going to have our amazing human beings join us later for the Q&A portion. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Michelle Gardner-Ince, aka GI, and we just want to thank you for joining us on this very, very special day. We've got a special guest, but first I want to get a few administrative remarks out of the way. I do work for the Department of Veteran Affairs in the Office of Small Business. It is my mission and my ministry to help women, veteran entrepreneurs, military spouses, women-owned businesses get more educated and have more access to government contracting and to basically understand the government game. However, I do want to ask you to look at my profile on LinkedIn for those of you who join me. Anything that is said today is my opinion only. It is not the opinion of the VA, or even if my guests say something, it is not the opinion, the policies, or anything of the VA. We do ask you to, check and verify everything. Hey, even though we may give you great knowledge, please remember that every business is different. Every situation is different, and we encourage you to seek out your business advisors, your business coaches, lawyers, and accountants, and others to make sure that you will be getting the best advice to apply for your to apply to your particular business situation. So having said that, I do want to welcome my guest. I won't introduce him until we do just a little moment of silence here because today is a special day. I'm going to bring John Hale to the stage, my guest who's going to be giving us some precious insights. And John, if you can go ahead and come on screen for me, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good to see you.
Good to see you.
And thanks for joining us, especially on this special day. I know we were supposed to be on Monday, but we had to slip to today. I was supporting a veteran organization who was raising money for children. But we would like to, just share a moment of silence for 9/11. By the way, John, where were you during on 9/11? Where were you located? What were you doing? What job were you working in? And I'll kind of share the same, and then we'll get on and get started.
Mm-hmm. First of all, Michelle, good evening, and thank you for having me. We're very excited to be here. On 9/11, I was in Winchester, Tennessee, which is South Central Tennessee, small town. And you fly into Nashville and kind of take 65 straight down and go on some state roads. You get to Winchester. This happened to be roughly a week after my 10th wedding anniversary. And for our 10th wedding anniversary, we were in Soho, which is in Lower Manhattan. We had a great time just eating, hanging out, etc. And we got a busy schedule and didn't get to do everything we wanted to do. And one of those things was go to the top of World Trade. We said we would see this on our next visit. We will check it out. Now you get busy visiting people and sites and kind of just there's a lot to do in New York City. And so we said we would come back and visit it during our next visit. So I was in Winchester, Tennessee. I was in the working in a corporate reorganization business. I had P&L responsibility for reorganizing and restructuring a automotive supplier who had gotten into trouble, middle market company. And so My job was basically running the operations, figuring out why we were air freighting parts and losing money. And that's where I was. And one solemn thing I do, just from a unifying standpoint, I remember about that day going into Winchester before 9/11, the main street going in was lined with Confederate flags going in right and left. And I said, oh, interesting. Well, I'm going to. But after I was there for 9/11, everything was shut down. So I just drove my rent-a-car back to Detroit and kind of went my way. But when I came back down there, I noticed, I think we all did, when you immediately, once the airspace was cleared, you could travel. There were the armed forces were in all the airports. As soon as you get off or get in, several men and women with automatic weapons were there to greet you, to make sure we're in our best behavior. So it was a very solemn time. But going back, there was all American flags lined
I love it.
up and down the street there. And so that was really encouraging to see, because we are, at the end of the day, we are all Americans. We should, salute the same flag, and we all say the same oath. For those of us at the Energy Department, I took an oath. I had a Q level clearance, so we all take the same oath, and we all protect and serve the same Constitution in the same country.
I think that's a very good point. As we, think about observing all that we lost, how the country became unified around, America, what we stood for, and how dare somebody come on our soil and, attack us. I remember I was, the deputy base commander at Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts, outside Boston. So because the planes,
Yes.
because the planes departed from there,
From Boston, right?
we were on high alert. And I will tell you, it's rare that you get to what, you see it in the movies, DEFCON 4. Mm-hmm. And we were in the command post, everybody's scurrying, we're locking down, we're making announcements across the base because, people had children. I was on the school board. And so people had children downtown at school. Right. And so it was quite chaotic. But I do remember that, America was never the same. Right. Everybody that came into the base after that time was scrutinized. In fact, we were shut down for 3 months. And unless you worked on the base or had specific business, you couldn't do anywhere else. Right. Yeah, you didn't. You couldn't go on. So as we think about that, just thankful for our freedom, thankful for the unification, even though it's being threatened. The unification of America. Let's just pause for a few seconds for those who the loss is a little bit more personal, right? They lost somebody, or they don't have the same quality of life that they had prior to that moment. So if we'll just give a few moments of silence, and then we'll get started. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. So LinkedIn fam, Facebook and YouTube, we are in for an absolute delight. If you tuned in a few minutes earlier, you got to hear the infamous, the amazing John Hale speak. He's a transformational leader, a board member, C-suite executive with over 30 years of experience in the public and private sectors. He's known for his expertise around turnaround strategies, growth, and sustainability. He's made an indelible mark, not only in the industrial, energy, government contracting, and financial services, but he's also made an indelible mark on one of the amazing human beings who joins us here every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, Chanel Glover. We've gotten the benefit of her amazing mind, her amazing insight, and it is well beyond her years, and it's because of you as a mentor. So we just want to say thank you for making that investment, John, so that we would get the benefit of that. John is also qualified as an SEC financial expert and has successfully led companies through restructuring Chapter 11 proceedings, guiding them to emerge stronger, better, and more competitive. His career is built on driving results in challenging environments. And we know the government is always a challenging environment.
Yes.
But now he is in the role of CEO of Cornerstone Group. He's on the other side. He was on the government side. Right. Now he's on the side with many of our listeners and folks who are watching as CEO of Cornerstone Group. He is. I'll have him explain what EBITDA is. I never remember that acronym. I think it's Greek for us non-financial folks and common language for those who are in the financial arena. But John's government experience includes being a presidential appointee in 2 federal senior executive roles, both at the SBA, where he was responsible for 60,000 loan approvals at more than $30 billion, directly empowering, small business, which makes this country, run. People think it's big business, but it's really small business. And then at Department of Energy, he transformed efforts to improve the department's grade from an F to an A. Now, y'all don't know, everybody getting an A now. This isn't on the curve A. Back when John was there, this was a straight up F all the way to an A. So, I think y'all ought to give him some love because, all the folks who benefited from all those amazing, opportunities to serve the Department of Energy. And so as a result, he got the Meritorious Service Award from the Secretary. He currently serves on a board of FSC. First, he's a certified financial development, which is a certified financial development institution. He also is a board member at Fulton Bank, and he also serves on the Next Energy Board of Directors. I could go on and on. You can look at his LinkedIn bio. He hails from Ohio, right? Did I get that right? Michigan.
Michigan originally.
Okay, Michigan originally. Went to University of Michigan and got his master's and BA from University of Michigan. He got his BA from University of Michigan, his master's from Carnegie Mellon. And I could go on and on about his amazing experience, pedigree. But guess what? He likes boot camp workouts. Who knew? Who knew? And he loves Michigan football most of all. But John, I want to say welcome. So excited about you joining us. And really, I'm excited because of how generous you've been thus far and just sharing with us about your government time, because everybody wants to know what it's like to be an OSDBU director. Why y'all don't give us more contracts? What's going on over there? Can't y'all make them give us contracts? So John, first tell us, how did you get to be known? Because being a political appointee, let's go back there, and then we'll kind of walk forward to your time, at Energy and SBA.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I love it. And hopefully that's not an Ohio State Buckeye red you're wearing, but no, it's not. Okay, good. Okay. There'll be someone else's red. I guess
it's Tuskegee. It's Tuskegee red. Tuskegee.
Okay, there you go. All right. I love it. I love it. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. We'll jump into the meat of some of the stuff a little bit later. Really look forward to doing that. But success is a team sport. I had some great colleagues to work with at DOE that really helped to make that happen. So that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed my time there. Yeah, we just, my wife and I, we got to be in Detroit, and all the smart money was with Senator Clinton. Hillary Clinton was going to win the election. And lo and behold, President Obama, then Senator Obama, decided to run. And so we got involved early in Michigan in the campaign and really helped to lead a lot of those efforts. My wife had the good pleasure of going to law school with the president. They were law school classmates. And so we were able to get involved early. He wrote, all the smart money again on the Democratic side was with Senator Clinton. So he had to rely on a little bit of a lot of his law school classmates and other folks that were engaged politically in career and business, but weren't quite, of the level of the other folks. And he ran a very grassroots campaign, very exciting, was a change candidate. And we were just happy to be a part of that. And, everyone's got to do their part. So we kind of did ours, but we know millions of other people did theirs as well. So that's kind of how we got involved back in Detroit, and said, do you want to come to Washington? It's like the Beverly Hillbillies. We just picked up and fled, We didn't have Texas tea but we just kind of jumped on over to Washington, D.C., and it was a lot of fun.
So tell me, was Washington, as a political appointee, there are some, every agency, major agency, CFO agency, has a CFO Act agency, has an OSDBU.
Yes, correct.
What's the difference on why are some politically appointed and others not? Do you have insight you could share? I want to give our audience understanding.
That's a very good point. So when I served, there were three of us that were politicals, GSA, DOE, I believe, and DOD. And so it's an SES position. Every administration politically coming in gets a certain handful to pick and choose where they want to put them. So that's where those three agencies decided to do that. At any given point in time, I presume if a federal agency wants to change that to a career position, they could probably do that. That's my understanding. Each administration has to figure out how they want to use their, political GS-15s, NES and the SES. SES is the highest career level. So from a political standpoint, we were not Senate confirmed, but that's the highest level we could be and not be confirmed by the U.S. Senate.
So were there any different, I'm sure regardless of whether they were political or not, were your counterparts, did they have any less pressure? Did you have more pressure as a political? What would you say?
No, I'd say what's interesting. I would say the biggest challenge with the OSDBU role and goal is you're responsible for a goal for which you have no control over. Most OSDBUs compared to the other agencies' federal budget it's probably not even measurable in terms of any agency has multi-billion dollars to spend, and obviously folks at the DOD OSDBU may have a bigger budget, but it still dwarfs in comparison to all the other commands and et cetera. So you really have to rely upon your political skills. You really have to rely on your boss. The OSDBU that's why the way it's structured, you should report to the deputy secretary or the secretary of your agency. And if they are interested in taking this serious, you have a chance. And if they're not, you're kind of floundering. So for myself, Department of Energy was in the middle of getting 4 consecutive F grades on this SBA scorecard.
Wow.
It comes out every year, every spring or so, called April, May. And everyone gets ranked. And, there's a government-wide goal. And then, then the next paragraph talks about how the major agencies did. So someplace in there, there always been an article in the Department of Energy got an F for the first, second, or fourth consecutive year. It could be in the Washington Post, Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, etc. So the secretary would get the call, and then he would call me. So that's kind of how it worked. But my biggest advantage, one of the smart things I made, was really being humble. When I joined the OSDBU community, made a lot of great friends I still have to this day. Folks are very, very helpful. I think Glenn Delgado, who was at NASA, I believe he's retired. So Glenn was very, very helpful. So were quite a few other folks.
What would
Tom Lenny was a VA OSDBU at the time.
Yep.
So I would go to the meetings. Mario, Desmond, etc. Everyone was very helpful. Andre Grudger was at DOD. I mean, his advantage was DOD, it seems like always has been at the forefront, taking it serious. and he had a big budget. So, but it was good to just get ideas from people externally, and then also just listen to the staff as well. But being able to get those ideas, and people would literally send me information. And I have my funny government story about joining the government coming from the outside. Is the title OSDBU is the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. I believe it was established in 1978 or so. I think 78 when you were established. So it has a very 1970s feel to it. Well, I always thought is I don't want a disadvantaged plumber, a disadvantaged carpenter, a disadvantaged anybody come to my house to fix something. I want the plumber electrician who's going to show up and fix it in an emergency. You call them on the weekend, say, Mr. Hale, we call you, you got to pay the premium to come out on a Saturday. That's great, man. You got to get here. I got people coming over. So anyway, given that and getting that, you want to rebrand and do things a little bit differently. I talked to a career lawyer at the Department of Energy, and she said, well, you can't do that because that's what's in the fire. I said, great. So I talked to Glenn Delgado, though. She said only DOD could call it the Office of Small Business Programs. So he had a big magazine, and the cover of his website says the Office of Small Business Programs, because no one knows what an OSDBU does. But if you say small business programs,
they go,
yeah. You have a sense of what you do. So anyway, I thought OSDBU would be a good name for a movie character. That's about it. I went back. I guess Glenn never got in trouble by showing, well, here's a magazine, here's a website that, NASA's a civilian agency. Yeah, but we're not doing that here. So that's my first introduction to government.
Because the law said so.
If someone else found a way around it, so anyway, but that was kind of my first one.
So what was your greatest challenge in, did it take the hammer to go from an F to an A? And who held the hammer? Was it strategy? Like, give us some little bit of insight, because the reason I really was so excited about talking with you is because I don't, other than come tell me how I can get contracts, I don't really think people understand the role of advocacy, the role of, not only advocating, but also you're protecting some things. Can you explain, and I'm sure you had to do some of those advocacy and protection actions in addition to building relationships to get from an F to an A?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. A great question. I'd say that the biggest, kind of one of the biggest themes I will say is it's really 50-50 job, which when you don't see the OSDBU director or the advocates for small business, when we're not outwardly facing, we're inwardly facing, talking to the contract officers, the CORs, COTARs, and talking to the program officials. And like you said, advocating for small businesses. Sometimes, and some of them are more welcoming and eager than others. Sometimes you have to force yourself into the acquisition process, because we're here at the end of fiscal year 24. As you know, folks are planning acquisition strategies for 25 and 26, and maybe even some big ones, 27. So you need to be in there now, talking to them. And really what I lived by was, we don't have a shortage of talented and qualified small businesses. We have a shortage of small business opportunities. And so that was my mantra. And so internally, you try to build relationships with the other counterparts there, really spend time learning their mission, what's important to them, and why. And so a lot of that was a lot of listening, talking, being assertive, and kind of understanding where you could and could not, what in terms of the mission, where the pushback was, or resistance to small business, building some trust, and then at the same time looking at the statements of work and how can we have small businesses to execute that, and really helping them to understand that small businesses are part of your acquisition strategy to execute your mission. We're one of the tools in the toolbox, so to speak. Department of Energy, we have national labs, we have management operating contractors for the cleanup sites. You have other large businesses, but you have small businesses that are there to partner with the various missions and departments of the Department of Energy to execute the mission, and where and how can small businesses play and what the criteria is. So we had some good experiences of pushing back and them educating me. And that's going to go on kind of a little yin and yang, getting to know one another, build a relationship, understand that here's the bar at the Department of Energy, and letting them know, I don't want to lower the bar. I want to know what the bar is and how can we all communicate that out to industry and say, you come up to this bar, you got a shot. And
Why?
so,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, so that's a lot of what we had to do, and just understand that small business was not Department of Energy maybe wasn't a good place for every small business, and I had a real good team at the Department of Energy within the OSDBU office. There were 4 of us. By the time I left, we got budget up to 14.
Wow.
We were able to add some folks specifically. That had contract warrants from other agencies. That was very helpful. So that let us get more engaged in terms of, number one, you bring ideas from other agencies. We didn't use a lot of NASA Soup, for instance,
Right.
or some other vehicles that other people were familiar with. We have folks from different agencies that use other vehicles. That's an example that comes right off the top of my head. So helping educate that, hey, we're here to help get the work done. We know there's not enough program people and contract officers. So how can we help with the COs that we had there with their experience, not to challenge you on how you're doing stuff? How can we help expedite sources sought when you're doing that or going to a schedule? How can we help with the internal schedules, et cetera? So that was real big. And we had some great partners in the Department of Energy that were other small business advocates outside the OSDBU office that were very, very critical, very helpful in sharing information, ideas, how to collaborate, getting through a small business first policy. In some cases, we were able to get small business benchmarks and goals that we would do goal every agency. We were able to get those into the performance standards for some of the folks. So those type of things really help, but it takes partners and people to do that. So it was really a team effort, and a lot of career people who wanted to help. And at the end of the day, it's really focusing on the mission of the agency. If you're loyal to the mission, and hey, I would say, yeah, I didn't think this was a small business opportunity. So then finding something you could rally around. We're talking about veterans. You work at the VA. How can you work on numbers? So you have women on hub zones, veterans, et cetera. And so we had some real creative people at the Department of Energy. And one last footnote there, the Department of Energy has the benefit of having 2 shops from an acquisition strategy. You have NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration, which is probably 55 to 60% of the budget is nuclear stuff, and if the maintenance of that and non-proliferation, et cetera. This is a legacy of the Cold War. So God forbid the president, he or she has to use them. The weapons have to be ready. Can't be like, we're going to wait 6 months. And then you have the other side of the department, which deals with environmental cleanup, our 17 national laboratories, renewable energy, grid, and those type of things. So it was great having 2 acquisition shops to work with. And that was very helpful. But it was really a team effort. And then at the end of the day, reporting to the secretary, that changed, getting us in line with what the FAR had. We kind of weren't before. That reorganization helped. Secretary Moniz took it seriously. And he said every time he would go to the White House and won something, he'd hear from Valley Jared and other people about, what about that F over there? This is great. So he was engaged, and he invested about $19 million of our resources to help us transform our reporting, collection of data information to reflect the true effort to move from an F to an A. And so, the agency's done a great job of keeping that, building that, making it better going forward. So, yes, it's really a team effort, but a lot of what I think your audience needs to understand is the advocacy inside the agency. I made a deal with a lot of the small businesses that wanted more opportunities, people, folks that have former feds, have been around DOE for years. I said, hey, you need to be straight with me about what are some legitimate small business opportunities, not the ones you want, what are real legitimate ones, and help explain to me why. And then at the same time, those are the ones that I can go fight for. So the deal was, hey, I'm not going to get Michelle per se a contract, but I would open this up, opportunity to small business community. You'd have to compete. So if you're betting on yourself, have confidence in yourself, that if we create more opportunities, you can win, this will help. So I kept them confidential because they didn't want a sense of any type of reprisals, and I wouldn't. And so, so that was kind of building those alliances around. And the last thing I did was really hug close to DOD and to DOD and the NASA, because NASA has two national labs. It's part of a scientific culture that was respected. Department of Energy. We have a close relationship with the Navy at Department of Energy, so there's clearly alignment and respect for DOD. And certain aspects of Department of Energy have a very military structure and feel to it. And so really saying, hey, we knew what we spent. Our top 10 to 15 NAICS codes really kind of don't change year after year. Who are your top small business performers that you all have in these NAICS codes? Give me a few in each.
Yep.
They became part of our source of salt. If you're interested in energy, great. We need to start responding to these stuff. So that was a way of this kind of shortcut. I said, who's over there who's good? And so we were able to borrow some of those folks in terms of.
So John, you talked about, your strategy in getting from an F to an A.
Right.
Now I kind of would like to, and, in the roles as an OSDBU executive director, both advocacy, strategy, building relationships. I kind of like to spend this much time on what were some of the barriers. You said, some of the program managers or CEOs kind of think, well, we don't want to lower the bar. What can small businesses do to not ensure, but to cancel that perception that they're lowering the bar? And then I want to spend, I'm trying to hold back a cough, the rest of the time talking about what it looked like your transition from government insider to the other side.
Great. Yeah. So I'll give you several ideas immediately come. Some of them are going to sound kind of basic, but I'm bringing it up to reinforce them because I'd run across companies that didn't follow these all the time. So I would say, number one out of 13 companies had a strategy on how to grow their business other than I want that next contract. So you have to have a really a legitimate strategic plan to grow and scale your company. And so that would be one. The other one would be Department of Energy is one of the more complicated agencies because I can't remember the percentages, but significantly most of our employees are contractors and not feds. All of our national labs, you'd be contracting with them and not to the Department of Energy. And so just understanding that matrix takes a little bit of time. So really be specific about what you want. Think about arming the OSDBU to become an advocate for you. We're not supposed to advocate for you. We're supposed to advocate for opportunities, but there's a human nature to that. So if you show up present, when I say prepared, it's more than just the Deltec or the government about what we're spending. I would say really look at the agency's budget. We all know the agency's budget is what the agency's priorities are. They're not going to always get them from Congress. That's just the way it is. But really reading and understand those. And pay particular attention to when I left SBA, for instance, and I was interviewing at a couple of different agencies. One, I ended up at Energy. Just kind of how politically you go to White House personnel, and they kind of you'll talk to whoever. So what I did is I went to YouTube and found out who's the undersecretary, deputy secretary I'd be speaking to. What were their budget hearings? Most people put stuff out on their LinkedIn or to go to YouTube videos, find them speaking in Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, outside someplace. So they're going to give a speak at a Chamber of Commerce, Commerce or some type of agency or forum. Hear what he or she is saying, what's important to them, and connect the dots. Go to, I think one of the other people's challenges become your business development opportunities. So when they go to the Hill, what are they getting hammered on? What are they getting hammered on in the national paper, even some of the local press in Department of Energy, be Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Albuquerque, New Mexico, et cetera. What are the local press saying about them? And then one thing that hit my lap when I was there is, I think one of the most overlooked business development tool is the OIG, the Office of Inspector General. So, so two things about them. One, they have a badge, so they can formally investigate you like a law enforcement DOJ type. If they have that type of legal authority, so the people are badged, so they can investigate you, and they're looking at fraud within the agency. That got me. The first advice I got when I served is two things you get fired for are people and contracts. So, don't go around trying to hire people outside the process and don't, oh, Michelle wants a contract to kind of do this. People are watching everything you do. You get a knock on the door. They've probably already been into your bank account, everything else. You kind of get walked out. So we had an OIG investigation of some fraud. And in the Washington State, we have a couple of, national lab and some sites out there. Great area, beautiful area of the country. And so anyway, there was an issue that came up. It was, in fact, a small business program. I get a call to the secretary's office, and the deputy secretary, man, you got to come up now. So you kind of walk up there. You're like, uh-oh. What did I do? You go to the principal's office. Am I getting thank you for your service, but you're out of here? Or we're getting 4 Fs. We're calling the right-hander from the bullpen. You're done. Anyway, long story short was, hey, we got a problem. I said, oh, I assume it's the secretary. You want the problem? You want your answer yesterday? He said, no, John, I wanted it last week. I said, I got it. So we had to figure that out, what was legit, where was going on. But again, we had a small office of 4 to 6 people. So if I need to rely on contractors, somebody that's close to us that's delivering good service, that again has got a contract vehicle. So when I'm talking to you, hey, John, you want to spend money with me? You can do a 8 to 12 to 18 month FAR contract and maybe get it protested, or you can go over here. It could be an 8A set aside. It can be a hub zone, socioeconomic set aside. It could be a schedule, whatever. You've got to make it easy for me to spend money with you. So that's where we would really spend a lot of time. I think also really be specific about what you want. Give me the information to help me advocate for you. Very rarely did I would, on a handful of occasions, did someone come in with enough information, market research, and specifics about why a certain award could be a full or partial small business set aside. The typical is come in with your partner. You may have a mentor protege. You may have a JV agreement. People use those a lot. Those are great. I would say with the mentor protege, just put an asterisk beside it. Don't let the mentor use you to get a contract. Make sure you're getting your contract, but also make sure you're getting nuggets and something tangible to build the capacity of your company, meaning that there's something technical that's being passed on. It's not just, oh, you're working a contract. No, you want them to expose you to maybe how they're doing their pricing, how they're doing some other aspect in the industry that your line is technical. So you have that capacity building process, and you actually have relationships with the people in the company, because those people could leave tomorrow and they travel around too. So you want to have that type of relationship there with them. And also you want to make yourself appear bigger than you are. When you walk to these animal shows, when a grizzly bear gets upset, what do? They stand up. So you know how big that, you really want to mess with me? I'm going to stand up and show how big you are. But so at the same standpoint, you've got to do the same thing. So a couple of advices there. Number one, when you're looking to partner with firms, maybe look to bring in people that have a different perspective from outside of government. Bring in someone from the commercial sector that's doing your work, similar work. You can introduce them to the federal sector, and maybe they can introduce you to the commercial sector and commercial clients as well, because you need to diversify your revenue source. Number two, get an independent third party to validate how good you are. We all say we're great. I've heard a Cape Statement presentation. Someone says they're not competent, not great. But third parties, you have awards out there. Awards are great. You get the socioeconomic awards, contract awards, Chamber of Commerce. Those are good. Not diminishing those. But if you can get a technical award for delivery of service, some technical award that you've done, if you've got some type of patents for a process, something like that, or patent pending, something that says, hey, there's an independent, there's something special, different, makes you more of a unicorn. I'm moving from this stack over here. The other one would be, and this would drive me crazy at one company one time, even if a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of pride. And the old saying in the Bible, pride comes for the fall. Here's one of them, is I bootstrapped my company and I built it to X. I really am impressed with that you haven't taken any debt or equity or something like that, whatever. But you're crazy. Leverage is one of the most powerful tools. So you mentioned boot camp. The older I get, the smarter I get. I can't lift as much weight as I do, but what do? I go to an Ace Hardware, Home Depot, and I get a dolly. And I can put 300. Once I get that 300 pounds in there, I can take that dolly up around the house and down the street. It's all about leverage. So yes, an acceptable amount of debt is good. You don't want to be overly leveraged, but debt is good. But also, we all know how conservative bankers are. They will look at your business return. They're going to look at your personal tax returns. They're going to look at how you conduct your personal and business life. they're going to run a LexisNexis. They're going to do background search on before they give you a loan. As a former banker, you should know that. So if you've got something out there, you might want to take care of it before you get a bank. They may not tell you why you got denied, but that could be something. So given how conservative they are, if you have a line of credit, even if you don't need it, get the line of credit or get the loan, borrow it, and pay it back. So that proves two things. Number one, if you come to me or anybody else, oh, you have a line of credit. What does that mean? The government, we're not going to pay you right away. If you didn't know that, you already know that. Now you should know that. And guess what? Your prime contractor is going to use you to the bank. I mean, I get calls where I can't get paid because a large beltway bandit, as we call them here in DC, they're not paying you. I'm not going to say any major firms. We know who they are. So they're not going to pay you. And a lot of times their terms are 60 days. Their general terms, commercial market, are 60 days. So, but you've got to pay people every 2 weeks. It may be a month, rent every month. So how do you cover that misalignment from your cash flow? How do you do that? You can bootstrap it. I think that's prideful, unless you can't get a loan. But we could talk about that. We can do an extra sessions on how to get capital. We can do that pretty good. But get your loan, even if you don't need it. Get it because it shows you, Michelle, as a contracting officer, that John, you've got this $5 billion contract and you have a line of credit. But hey, I'm not going to pay you right away. This contract may scale. Can you grow with me? Well, you said, hey, you've already got a relationship in the line of credit. Yeah. You can always factor, but that's very expensive. I got to tell you a story about that later. But hey, if you're at any bank of any common sense and they want business to grow, if you already have I don't care if it's 50, 100, 200, 50,000, million, whatever it is, line of credit, if I know you're a good customer and you get this other big contract, I'm going to increase that line, because that's the more you borrow, that's the more money you run through my bank. Yeah. That's the line, that's the more people on there. I want more of your payroll accounts. If you got a merchant card, you need a gas card or whatever, you need a merchant card because you got to buy laptops. Everyone's got to get, cleared. You got to pay for someone to do all this kind of stuff. These certifications, hey, here's a card, charge it. We love it. Charge the John Hale bank card. We love the interest payment. So as a former loan officer, we got paid. We need to collect all those fees. So do that. Do that. It gives the government knowing you're less risk coming in, makes you feel bigger because you can ramp up, but also let you know, hey, you probably personally guaranteed that. So they went through everything you own for the last 3 to 5 years and figured out that you're conducting your personal business life the same. The second would be is get certifications. Two of the things that stand out about how you run your company. Make sure you, from a Six Sigma standpoint, be efficient. It'll help your profitability. And if you can get an ISO standard, those are global standards about efficiencies and execution of your business. It speaks to the internal control process and mechanism within your company. So it's a third-party validation that you kind of know what you're doing operationally within your company. And I said that to someone at one time. They came back and they said, John, Eric, that's expensive. I said, that's the point. If you're not going to invest in your business, why should this contract officer take the risk? I mean, their career in that warrant is based upon you performing. So if you're not, so maybe you don't go out as much. Maybe you don't get that nice car. I mean, it's all about, reinvesting back in your company. So those are just a couple of things you can make your company look bigger and have third-party validation and maybe others that you really know what you're doing.
So I put Ed's question up there, but I think I'm going to save it till later.
Okay.
Can you talk about, so you've talked about your role as a OSDBU executive director, advocacy, protecting, I call it the small business advantage. Now you've said, hey, here's some ways you cannot be a barrier as a small business. Now you're on the other side in your business as a CEO.
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself if you were on the other side?
Sure. Now? Yes. And I had one quick thing I forgot to say.
Oh, sorry.
Distinguish yourself from the last part is, I'm assuming everyone, I've only happened this once. Everyone should pay your taxes, make your taxes work for you. I mean, get to know your congressional delegation and get to know the delegation in Congress that serves on the committees that have oversight of your customers. Here's why. I would hear from people from the congressional delegation when someone's protesting or they getting paid, et cetera. But on the flip side of that, use that as part of your marketing. When you're in DC, make an appointment. Everyone's got a U.S. Congressperson. You should know him or her. and their chief of staff and their people, and they should know you. And everyone has 2 U.S. senators. So everyone loves small business when it gets time to get reelected about what they did to help somebody. So make sure that they know what you want, what you need, and any barriers that you're running into. Leverage them to be helpful to you in your business development strategy. It doesn't make a difference what side of the political party they're in, and they get to know who has jurisdiction over your committee. If they're in your state or district, hey, see them at home too, but also see them when you're in DC so that they can help advocate for you to help open doors. The biggest thing with that, for instance, the legislation that changed with the small business, that look back period went to 5 years. And so that is a big win for companies. That was a legislative change. So the legislation can have impacts. Could do that. So the flip side about no longer becoming the OSDBU director, and when you leave the government is the bottom line is there's something by the OJs. Everyone smile in your face. If I could sing like the Leverts, I could sing, but I can't. But you know the song. If you don't, it's called "The Backstabbers" by the OJs. Go to YouTube. The lyrics are really good. Do the version where you can either listen or print out the lyrics with the CC and the lyrics. Anyway, not everyone is your friend. Some people deal with you because they have to deal with you. Because I reported to the secretary, and that was great. So when you leave, what happens? 2 things happen for me. One, the Obama administration kind of have a 2-year, not a 1-year moratorium, and kind of going back and advocating for companies. So that was a little bit different. And then you have COVID. So, but the biggest thing is understanding is start with the end in mind, build the relationships while you're in the government across federal agencies and with your agency as any official. And just hopefully you're a nice and genuine, sincere person and reasonable. If you come off as an arrogant person, either because you're political or because because you've reached a success in your career, people aren't going to want to deal with you when you're gone, when they don't think that they have to. That's number one. So start with that before you leave. The biggest thing is some people, as they say, which is true, return your call, some don't. And you're going to be surprised at the people who you thought won't, and some people you're shocked will. And that's the same thing also with the large prime contractors at whatever agency you're in. They're going to be there forever. Department of Energy, we have our national labs and our big contractors. But again, they're all people that are there, and it's about those relationships with people. And also the old adage is the most powerful person in anybody's agency are the executive assistants. They're the gatekeepers. And so when I would go to the 7-4 Department of Energy, when I would go see Secretary Moniz, they could really tell me now is not a good time, or I would bring that up. Don't bring that up, because they know, they see all the incoming. Same thing when you leave. I mean, it's the EAs, and they move around to other agencies like contract officers. And so those would be things to really keep in mind. I think the other thing is really having a goal about before you're leaving, planning, and again, being prepared. What do you want to do? Some people want to retire, and that's great. Some people just don't have anything to do with federal government contract. They want to do something else, or they retire. That's fine. If you still kind of want to stay within the game, so to speak, then you have to think about what your currency is. What value do you add? So for me, it's okay, you're the OSDBU director, but I didn't grow up in government. So my being a unicorn is I bring the corporate experience, I bring the financial experience, restructuring companies, being a lender. So I've got relationships with financial sources of capital. I have the ability to look at a company to help optimize them from a profitability, from an operations standpoint. So I bring that as well as the federal. And so you have to figure out what makes you unique. One, but figure out what you want to do, quite frankly. I mean, you may like, hey, I just want to write proposals. I don't want to go around talking to people, worry about people. That's great. You can write proposals. Some people love getting in front of doing the business development and the marketing. Figure out what your strength is and what you want to do and align that. But the biggest thing is you'll be surprised about some people that call and don't call. The other thing is you got to kind of have thick skin. You've got a lot of small businesses you would have helped. They don't know who you are now. But the beauty of it is, I think I just feel going back to conferences. I kind of stayed away from the Department of Energy for a while. They kind of come back later, but for me, I think most people appreciate that they felt that you were honestly trying to do something for them, and just try to shoot them straight that, hey, You're doing what you can. Some things obviously you can't say because they're procurement sensitive and you can't share some things. So clearly you can't. But I think if you shoot people straight, if they know that you're giving 120%, unless they're jerks, they're just going to appreciate your service. And again, those are relationships you strike up. Maybe they're friends sometimes, maybe they're customers. Maybe, we just see them, we just get together for a cup of coffee, just check in, hey, how's the family doing, kind of stuff. But I think that would be just the biggest thing now that you're not there is that. And the other thing is with COVID, not everyone's in the federal agency. So part of before COVID, you go back to an agency, you kind of just walk and talk to people. You walk down the hall. I see Michelle, how you doing? And we just talk. And if it's something really big or important, they're like, close the door. I'm like, hey, I'm about to get some goodies today. They say, close the door. Close the door, have some candy or some cake or something. Let's talk. I don't need the candy or cake, but hey, I'll do that to get some good scoop about some stuff that's coming up. And then you mentioned, perfect example, Chanel Glover, who you mentioned earlier. A lot of career people you met. I don't know where Chanel was. She was at SBA. I can't remember what grade level she was, but it wasn't like a 14 or 15, but she was kind of in the middle, but always quiet. But you know how you tell people that they're quiet, but you know that they got something going on up here that you can tell the wheels are turning. So anyway, so I always loved working with her. Always had a lot of insights and really smart. And if it didn't know something, would say that they didn't know something. So there's people like that you develop relationships with and others. So when you leave, those are people you can work with throughout the government, and you just keep up with them. And so that's the biggest thing is if you're genuine, you try hard, and you're not arrogant, and you listen, you can develop great relationships. I remember one woman at the SBA wanted to do something with her career, and you had some senior people who always did the speaking, speaking at the conference, they're the SES or they're the 14 or 15. And I said, no, this person's going to speak at the conference. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, I said, well, I'm the Deputy Associate Administrator of the SBA in Capital Access. I can decide to speak at that conference. You're not speaking. This person is. We have talented people. They've developed. Let them grow. Let them get to blossom. They need some sunshine too. So those are some things, and people will remember that. Obviously, do that when people are ready and that they've earned that. But people remember that when you give people breaks or opportunities in their career. So it's not just about you and what you need to get done as a political or as a senior executive. What are you doing to help other people? And people, we know if you care, and they know if you don't. They know if you're sincere or not. We've all been around.
So, John, what would you? We're going to take some questions,
Oh, sure.
and I'm going to bring Chanel and Lori to the stage and encourage our audience to add some questions to the chat. But most government people, we think we know everything, and we're going to get out there and we're going to kill this game. What would you say government workers, government federal people thinking about transitioning into business, because the workforce is older now.
Yes.
Even though we don't want to think we're older. What advice would you give a government person? What do they need to be doing now? Of course, that's legally and ethically correct, but what kind of insight and things do they need to be doing so that when they transition to the other side and either want to help small businesses or they want to own their own business, what advice would you give them?
Three things I would say. Number one, or four. So point zero is this really for you? Do you really want to do that? Do you really want to start over? Do you really want to, kind of like the old farmer, pound 40 acres with a mule, not with an automated tractor or whatever that does own irrigation? You got to lean in. Do you want to kick that mule? Do you really want to start over? You may have some relationships and knowledge, yes, but do you really want to start over? It's very similar to smart technical people, but do you know business? So I would say starting at ground zero, humble yourself and write a legitimate business plan before you leave. You can still do that. So write your business plan, and you can get an outline from from several different places, but write a business plan, speaking, understanding about the capital, the cost it's going to take for you to invest in it, the cost of your time, the cost of what relationships you think are really there, because some may not be there, you think, and how much money you think you want to make, and how much you're willing to invest and or lose for the upfront for the first period of time before you start making money. Now, some of you may make money right away, but assume that you don't. So have a legitimate business. Do you want to do it? Is it for you? Start over. Do you have a legitimate business plan? And then second, are you really willing to put in that work on the other side? Are you really willing to put in that extra work and learn to be a business person and not a government official? When you work for the government, another employer, you get a check once a month or every 2 weeks, no matter what. If you don't do it as an entrepreneur, it just doesn't get done. And so that's a shift of mindset. It's not that you're not hardworking, not that you're not sincere. It's just a shift of mindset. But again, it goes back to having that business plan. What is your competitive advantage? You're in an industry that's low barrier to entry. Anybody can come in and say, I'm a government contracting expert, or I have an expertise in something in kind of the services industry, so to speak, for the most part, unless you have something, very technical that the government delivers. But if you're dealing in industries like staff augmentation and et cetera, that become more of a commodity industry, margins are low, anybody can do it, that's great. But you need to think about that. So the question is, are you going to have I would call it a legitimate business you want to grow and scale, or are you going to have a business where you have a handful of people you consult with because you know them, and hey, I've got my retirement, I got this and that, and I'm just going to do this. I will make some money, but this isn't something I want to scale, for instance, that you could sell to somebody else. It's more just training your knowledge and personal experience. So you need to decide what you're going to do, how much money you have invest. If you're married or have a partner, is he or she on the same page? Are they as committed as you are from a money standpoint to be able to do this? So I think it takes a cold, hard look in the mirror and realize once you leave, you leave. Sometimes we get wrapped up in our roles and positions and title, and that becomes who we are. So for the folks, I think sometimes it's hard. If I'm John Hale and I think I'm OSDBU director, if I get wrapped up into that, I mean, that's great. It's nice, but it's a period of time. It's a season. I mean, realize it for what it is. I took a space from a sense of public service, swore an oath to the Constitution. In these days, protect enemies, foreign and domestic, which is not so crazy. But I was there occupying a period of time. There was someone there before me. There's been people after me. I knew that going in. I wanted to make a difference while I was there and kind of leave a stamp on it today. I did what I could. If someone comes, ideally, someone should come to the office and make it better. That's great, because it should get better each step along the way. But if you have that right mindset, I think you succeed.
Great. Well, I'm going to bring Chanel up and Lori. Welcome, ladies. Welcome. Good to see you all. Thanks for joining. I know Chanel was giving you some love there in the comments.
Well, thank you, Chanel. I got to look at those. Well, thank you.
Chanel,
I'm glad that my wire cleared, by the way.
Yes.
Chanel, you want to take a question from the chat? We had a couple.
Yes. E.D. Mitchell, John, I don't know if I guess we all can give insight on this. E.D. Mitchell made a comment about how there's challenges in obtaining government contracts, and they are interested in hearing our feedback and what is the disconnect between government and small businesses. And so Michelle has it here. So what is the disconnect between government and small businesses, and how I guess the difficult it is, or how complex the process is for smaller businesses to obtain? And as we know, John and I also, we still work on many opportunities and engagements with small businesses. And so does Lori and I as well. So we see this all the time. Right. I'll just give my insight first. I think that some of the challenges are that small businesses need a lot of hand holding And sometimes they can forget that they're servicing the government is your customer. Like they're not there to like train you or wait for you to come up to speed. And government agencies can sometimes have good intentions for programs when they put it out or opportunities they want to bring small businesses on. The disconnect is they don't understand that, the small business may need that additional hand holding, or they have a learning curve and they need time, to learn the agency, or they may not have capacity or the financial resources that a large business has. So I think it's the disconnect and understanding, each party understanding one another. And that's where right now my company, that's the service that we're providing. It's like bridging the gap and helping the government to understand the small business community, helping the small business community to be prepared when they go and do business with the government, especially the federal government. You have to be prepared to do the work, not leaving time, or hoping that your agency will wait for you to come up to speed to perform the service. Because in the end, you still have to remember that it's a contract. You're under an engagement. You're there to perform work. So you're not necessarily there to learn on the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you, Sean. I agree with everything she said. My lens on it, just from a little bit of a context standpoint, is that there's some structural challenges that smaller companies are facing in government contract. A couple of big ones. One is category management. It was strategic sourcing before that. Very lay perspective is the government wants a cheaper way, call it customer acquisition. They want a cheaper way to acquire their to acquire services from companies, large and small. And so they set up a system through category management that uses GSA, and there's some agency schedules as well. They call it BICS, best in class schedules. You can go to gsa.gov. There's great resources there on what this is. But the idea is to make it quicker, easier, and less time consuming for me as a contract officer to buy services from Lori, and just make it that much easier. But the challenge is you have to have past performance or experience to get on the schedule. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect there. More of that is an emphasis. When I was in, they've kind of changed the name. So there's more on that of a focus here. So that is a structural barrier. The second is outside of that is the other trend, I would say. It's called two different sides of the same coin. Some say consolidation. Some say bundling. Bundling is illegal or not supposed to be in the fire. You're not supposed to have it. Depending on who you talk to, some contracts are bundled, some are consolidated. But the idea is, again, with less federal people, employees to administer the contracts, the management costs and time, is they're combining scopes of work into larger contracts. I can see it specifically at Department of Energy for any number of contracts, support services, landscaping, a variety of information technology, et cetera. We are combining or have combined and will continue to combine contracts. When you start combining it, the scope of work goes up, the dollar value goes up. There's a perception that small business can't perform that work. I think that's yes and no. Some can't. Some more sophisticated, mature companies probably can. It just depends. So those are a couple of trends that are really hurting or challenging small businesses in those areas. I mean, GSA has GSA Springboard, which is trying to get around. So there are some ways they're trying to move around. There's some recognition. But I think there's a couple of big structural areas where small business have challenges. That means you need to look to a joint venture, consolidate with other members, and maybe you all join forces and even merge firms in certain industries if you're just doing the research. And that's how the government's procuring those services. You probably just need to, joint venture or consolidate your company with someone else. You can own X percent of $1 million or $500,000 company, or a smaller percent of a $10 million company. Depends what you want. You've got to figure that out. But I think that's one way to get around the trends.
Lori, did you want to add anything?
Well, I mean, both John and Chanel provided some great insight and feedback. But at the end of the day, before you even get to the point where you're having the challenges about structure and being able to, perform and compete and come up with someone else, to John's original point, it requires a mindset shift. People got to do the work, and you have got to build your foundation. And we're not taking that time. So the major challenge that small businesses are really having as it relates to government contracting today is that everyone is drinking this quick, easy win Kool-Aid. And because you're doing that, you think it's quick and you think it's easy and you don't want to invest. So there's free resources available and information that will provide you explanations of a lot of things. But to a degree, when you know absolutely nothing, that will not facilitate transformation. And you would much rather go to the spendthrift for the hope of transformation opposed to some, people who are trying to provide you the right kind of guidance. But before they start anything, we just got to get our minds right and know that preparation requires us to take our time, do our due diligence, invest in ourselves, in our companies, just as John was communicating and articulating earlier. And when you do that level of preparation, and you're learning the nuances behind the government, you're understanding how they're doing business. When you get that information under your belt, now you can navigate the landscape much more efficiently. So until such time as people really have that commitment towards that, there will continue to be this perception of a greater challenge than it actually is. Because I'm not going to say that there's not one, but we have to do our due diligence and show up prepared, to at least start mitigating some of that.
And one last thing I'd quickly add is diversify your business. I mean, even during my tenure, the government's a great customer, but we had shutdowns, sequestrations, etc. So I always view it as at least a four-legged stool. You have the federal government, you've got state and local, commercial, and you should look at exports. So if you're getting revenue from different sources, you're bringing different styles of past performance, different perhaps partners to the table, and also you've got revenue. Your job is, you're not a government contractor. You're the CEO of your company. Your responsibility to yourself, your family, to your employees, to your community, and to your partners. So you've got to get revenue, and diversifying it through these different channels and markets is a great way of doing it, because that gives you leverage back on the government. That what do you do? Oh, well, look at the work I've done for these other customers. Some people will recognize it, some won't, but at the end of the day, it tells them you are a successful business because someone's paying you for what you do.
Great. Chanel, we have another question.
Yes. Is this a question regarding the business development? Okay, so ED Mitchell, I think, has the same another question regarding being a business development contracting agency, and if it's frowned upon or seen unfavorable by agencies. John and I both are business development consultants. We actually partner on and provide that service. One thing I would say, if you're new to it as a business yourself, is to learn the rules of engagement, because even depending on which types of opportunities or programs your customers are working on, there are restrictions or certain ways you have to do business with that. Aside from that, it doesn't matter if it's a consultant, an FTE, or a consultant that's providing the service. The small business still needs to get to know their customer and build a relationship, or they're going to rely on you to manage their relationship with the customer. And what I've seen for small businesses is sometimes that does not work out for them in the end, especially, if they can't afford it, if it becomes, it's not feasible from a financial perspective, or they just didn't build a relationship with the customer. They don't know the customer. So yes, it's acceptable. There are rules, rules of engagement as with anything in government, but make sure your customers have reasonable expectations as well, because we work with all size companies, and sometimes a customer can think, make sure when you go in, they understand that it's not something that happens overnight. It doesn't matter who your BD person is or how much experience they have in government or their contacts. Right. You can have someone that's a seasoned BD person with the portfolio that's successful, but if the business goes in, or their person that's working directly with the customer goes in, and the customer does not like them, or they say the wrong thing, or they can't perform, it doesn't matter how much BD you do. You cannot do the work for them. So just that's my recommendation for you as a new BD business, is to learn the rules of engagement, especially around like 8A, service disabled veteran customers, even CIBR, but also for your customer to know, what the expectations are and the tenure, the time that it takes for them to scale up. I noticed that this also a trend where
Hey,
people are.
Chanel,
Yeah.
before we transition to something else, to another part of that, can John and Lori jump in?
Yeah. I would say quickly, the piggyback what Snow was saying is some of this is vetting your customer. If they're not putting the work in and they're not coachable, I'd walk away. That's going to be a lot of frustration. Some entrepreneur will hire you, but think they still know more than you are, just not willing. If they're not willing to take the advice or the coaching, I mean, they may be paying you, but it's going to be frustrating. So I would just walk away. Part of this is vetting and evaluating your onboarding of a transition from a prospect to a client. If they're not coachable, they're not going to listen. To put in the work and do the things that you feel that they need to do to be successful, tell them to find somebody else. And Chanel and I have both done that. So
I think all of the points that you all made were, just gold. We're at 8:14, so I'm managing time a little bit. Miss Lori, did you want to jump in?
All I'd say, he's a new company in business development. If that wasn't your jam prior to getting there, just continue to make sure you upskill and reskill in it, because business development means so many different things. And so be sure to always train yourself to become more efficient, because the market and the industry is changing. So you want to always stay on top of those so that you can provide the sage guidance that a company will need.
Yeah, I want to jump in and say I don't meet with BD people. You come to me when I have my federal hat on, because I want to know that the business owner knows the business, can communicate their value, know that they're going to be accountable to their government client. And so when I'm now then introducing them to small business liaisons and program managers, I want to be able to vouch. And the last thing is, business development come to government people and make money off of the information and go back and sell it to their clients. And I have a heart for small business, and I know money's not just flowing. I mean, unless you got it like that. So I want to save them a few pennies and say, no, if they want to get to me, you talk to me first, and then maybe, I'll introduce you, and you and your BD person can go and meet with other people. But that's just something for me, and it's all for me. It goes behind the fact that I started the very first veteran risk and fraud program for the Department of VA to make sure that companies were legitimately veteran, legitimately 50% owned and 100% controlled. And now that same model is now being used at SBA for women, HubZone, and 8A, because we were the first ISO 9000-1 certified business certification program. So that goes back to the heart. My little spidey senses go up when BD people come, and I'm like, where is the business owner? Like, do they exist? Do they really know what's going on? So that's just my, the reason that I do it is I believe integrity is important, and these opportunities, everybody doesn't get them. That's why we got an all small category and we got a large prime category, and we need to help our small businesses be ready to do the work and perform and communicate, because after the BD people are gone, Chanel, they can't always hire you.
Well, yeah. So I'm more so of a coach, and if anyone has hired me, I've given them much more than they paid for, because I do this for tech firms and very large companies. And the very large companies, they use the BD people. That's how they expand their portfolios, maintain them. But I always tell a customer, you need to learn your customer. Like, this isn't my customer, this is your customer.
Right.
So it's more so of coaching. That's what John and I do, like coaching them, and helping to answer the questions and saying like what to say, what not to say in front of your customer, go to demos with you. But BD can mean many things, like Lori said. For me, it's more so mentorship, coaching, showing you how to capture and how to stay in the customer space and how to, be compliant when you're there.
Yeah, and then the second thing would be, once you're there, how to grow that contract at that. I mean, you have to perform the initial work, but then how do you grow horizontally within that agency?
Absolutely. And Ed is saying that's what he wanted to know. Any advice on his second part two of his question, and then we'll start to close out. I wonder, what are the best ways to use business development people to a point, and then when it's best time to bring the client into the business development flow?
Well, I do market research, business development, capture, demo, even help jump in, manage contracts when, take meetings around compliance. So it depends on what your services are as a company. Like John and Lori stated, what are you strong in? Because business development and capture is like a whole nother process to government contracting. So yes, you can go, some government staff, they don't want to meet with, your BD people, but also, how does your company present you? Are you just a consultant to them that they bring on call, or are you, a part of their company? Like for me, I become a part of I'm a partner, I'm a teammate. I become a part of your company. So I have interest in your company beyond just, this one or two deals. So it's
Right.
also, what type of relationships are you building with your customers? Are you becoming a part of their team? So when you go in front of the customer, does it look like you're a consultant like that Michelle would not want to meet with? Or are you someone that looks like you're on the executive team and you can represent the owner and represent the company in a way where, the customer has trust you and, they want to engage with you just like they would the owner or any other leadership within the company?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well stated. And the only advice I would say to you is make sure you vet them and they're the customer you want, that you trust them. Because once you do that, and the scenario that Chanel was sharing that we do together is that, if they screw something up, I mean, that's your reputation. So if I do that, Michelle may not call me back. Say, John, we can go out to dinner, do whatever, man, but you're not bringing anybody over here. You made my life headache. He screwed a whole bunch of stuff up and I heard about it. So again,
Exactly.
that's your reputation. That's your reputation. As part of the vetting is, maybe you don't necessarily want them in the country. So there's ways to kind of test them along the way about, like Chanel said, market research. Are they listening? Are they doing their own work? Do you give them something? Do they read it and come back with questions? Or you say, hey, here's some read aheads before the meeting. Do they come back with questions, or they look at you with a blank face and kind of ask, hey, what did that say? Well, I don't care if it's 100 pages. You got to read it. That's your customer.
Hello. So let me, this is really intriguing. I just want a few more minutes. So given the fact that you and Chanel, and I know Chanel helps company as well, do you think BD people can help any company, or should they, just like a company, have a specific type market group that they focus on, or it doesn't matter?
I think you need to be true to yourself and the expertise you bring. If you're a proposal writer, be a proposal writer. That's a talent. That's a gift. That's a skill. You be a proposal writer. If you understand kind of the capture, building the pipeline, nurturing customers, that's great. You can help people do that. If you're true, more focused on BD, doing the advanced research, pulling the data about contracting trends and about the contract officer, what their award patterns are, then kind of do that as well. So you need to figure out what your value add is, what distinguishes you, and kind of, I wouldn't say stay in your lane, but focus primarily on that, and partner with other people, with a proposal writer, other people, if you want to bring a whole solution to somebody.
So what about market though? Should it be, they can do treasury, DOD, finance, or does that matter? It's like, I just do this thing and I do it for anybody.
Yes.
Well, I would say two things matter. I think, and I'll be quiet, is that relationships do matter, but they're not the all the be all. So you can have relationships, but people retire, people change. We will all run into customer to clients that they were jamming at some agency, but somebody retired or somebody left, and then someone else came in and they brought their team in and they're left there holding the bag and they have all this overhead in their company. significantly shrink. So part of it, yes, you need to do the research, but you need to know the agency. That's why you can't be all things to every agency. You have to know and focus on that agency because there's so many moving pieces, and from acronyms to everything else. So I think you need to know your agencies well, and kind of have a handful that you really focus on.
Yes. Also, in the BD and capture sector, this is where you have we vet our customers. So John, he brings on many customers, and I pretty much vet them for him. And we sometimes I share customers as well. We vet the customers because every customer is not for us. Whether it's a small business, a tech company, a city, county, you have to know what you are able to do for them based on what their what their request is, but also your customer's looking for a certain outcome. Can you do that? Is it reasonable? And then also are they willing to take on the risk that it may not happen just the same way you would? And like, what are you going to do about that? How long can they stay on? Can they stay for a 2-year tenure on the contract with you? Or are they looking for something to happen overnight? So for me, and John knows this, if a customer is only looking to engage under 6 months, I typically wouldn't consider them because I know how long it takes to scale. Especially like a small business. So and then also you learn the customer space, like Michelle was saying, whether it's DOD, NIH, small business, tech companies. I have a variety of experiences, and I know certain markets. I just had a tech company that didn't have any experience in government to win a large contract yesterday or today, and it took 9 months. I would not take that customer if they weren't willing to work with me at least 1 year, because I know, that that's something that takes a certain amount of time. So just the same way a customer should vet you as a BD or consultant or company, you vet your customers and you be realistic about what the outcomes may be, because many people are selling small businesses in certain industries. Oh, I've been working at this agency for 30 years. You also have to know what the person is doing, because John and I have had situations where, yes, someone was working there for 30 years, but what were they doing for 30 years? Is it relevant to what you're trying to do?
And maybe they have a bad reputation.
Well, yeah,
and they may not know the right people. They may not know that they worked it there, but they don't have the influence or know the right people.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, or know where to find the information. Like for me, I'm data driven. Like I can, I love reports and finding stats, and so customers find value in, or even for example, John, maybe appointees, former appointees, or policy people. They know that I keep up with certain issues and I have the data for it. So that's the added value. So you have to find out, how do you add value to customers in whichever space, as Michelle mentioned, whichever sector or type of business. And, find out, maybe I'm only good with DOD companies looking to get into DOD or the CIBR program. So it's just also being real about your capabilities as a company or consultant, and then making sure that the expectations are reasonable on both sides of, both parties have reasonable expectations.
Wonderful. Well, we're at 8:26, y'all. We just been having way too much time, but I agree with everybody that's in the chat. They've been saying, hey, great session. Really enjoy it. Nuggets. We've had about 30 people siphon through. A lot of people will come in, check the video out, and then come back and look at it. But I want to thank Lori and Chanel for joining, as always, my sisters in service, and just some amazing women who are making their mark in the community. John, I hope this is not the last time that we'll hang out.
This is a lot of fun.
I'm glad that, because I'd like to have you back and for us to co-facilitate some of these active OSDBU directors.
Well, that'd be great.
That would be kind of fun, I think. Yes, and I got a couple of them that I've been kind of courting. I'm going to put it that way.
You sound like my mother-in-law who lives with us.
Yeah. Kind of getting them warmed up and telling them, look, this is a friendly space. We have a good time, low threat. And so in the new year, I'm thinking that we're going to, everybody's end of year, nobody's talking really, and until the next year. But I'd love to invite you to co-host with me, and
I
so
would love to do that. Look forward to that. Yeah, that'd be great.
if you'll help me woo some folks, to come on with us, that would be great. Because I'd like to do maybe a couple, and then we have a conversation, and then we'll maybe do a panel. But I want to thank you. What tremendous time we had, the insight, the generosity of your authenticity, I think is what really made this special. And I'd love to do it again. For those of you who are out there, this is Demystifying Government Contracting. It's the GI factor. It's kind of a combo kind of session we did tonight. Thank you so much for joining. I'm GI. Most of you know that I am passionate about helping women, veterans, and minorities understand government contracting. I help agencies and commercial entities that are looking for qualified companies. I help them find and engage them, create strategic engagements so that we can reduce these barriers and burdens. But most of all, it is just my mission and ministry. I believe that entrepreneurship is really the first time many of our people, these underserved communities, have to decide what success looks like for them. And it's the only difference between where they are and where they are going to be is their hard work, their vision, and resilience and determination. It's not impossible. It's not as easy as it looks, but it's definitely doable. And there's lots of people who are successful. You look at John, you look at Lori, Chanel, others. So I'm going to close it out like I always do with my business benediction or my business blessing. For those of you who know, I want to tell you, do not forget, every Wednesday we're here. It doesn't matter if I have to get on here by myself. And they know, ride or die, hope, holiday, it doesn't matter. We're going to be here talking about government contracting and how to enable you for success. Again, I want to thank you to many of our folks, amazing humans who were in the chat. But this business blessing is based on inspired by the prayer of Jabez. May God bless you. May God bless you indeed. May he enlarge your territory. May he increase your influence. May he prosper your business. May he order your steps. May he open doors no man can shut. May he make your vision plain. May he restore what has been stolen or broken. May he keep you from evil and keep evil from you, because we know it can be ugly out there. But most of all, may God bless you, bless you, bless you indeed. Remember, what is for you is for you. Don't be sad if you don't win. You don't get in some door. It's not meant for you. Hold on. Come back. We're going to help you how to get in that door. And thank you for joining. And good night. God bless you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.